Alright, so I'm going to do this video, and as soon as I did that, I got a little message on my thing. Oh well, it can wait. And yes, it's going to probably be a little bit loud because I have the fans going, and, I know that somebody will say, back in the day, this is a tangent, okay? Back in the day, I had a refrigerator. What is that? Sorry. I think it's the light. Whatever. I had a refrigerator in the man cave that was really, really loud. And this was a refrigerator that was just garbage. It was a mini fridge. And the wife's like, well, you can just keep it in the man cave and, just put whatever you want in it, obviously. But the thing was super loud. There were so many comments that talked about the sound of the mini fridge. Actually, this does go into what I want to talk about. Holy smokes. And that is that people are always going to be opinionated. No matter what. And people are never going to be happy. Right? I saw something, and this is what this is about. I'm going to talk about it now. Make sure you join our Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. But Mackenzie, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie Scott, donated money to various different charities. She donated over $1 billion. And I saw where people in a particular Facebook group saying that she had donated money to historically black colleges and universities, and people were saying that's not enough. And of course, people posting false information saying that you have trillions, which there's no one on the planet that has trillions of dollars, and they're saying that she should give more. That's a drop in the bucket. Some people who were in that group who are also black, all of these are black folks, saying that that's cool, but you should feed the homeless because X, Y, and Z, right? And a lot of these women that were commenting, I don't say anything in this group, right? Because you're just going to go down the rabbit hole of people who just really and truly don't understand anything beyond what they want to see and what they want to believe. So no one really challenges them because they know exactly what you're going to be dealt with. You're not dealing with rational individuals. Not everybody in that group is that way, but there's a good chunk of people. And I actually left the group because it's just so toxic. The thought process is just toxic and very argumentative, defensive all the time. And there were other women who challenged this and said that she doesn't have to donate anything. she doesn't owe the world anything. She was the wife of the world's most wealthiest man of today. And there's nothing that says that she has to give anything. And also, she's not the owner of Amazon. She was the spouse. So Jeff Bezos and how he ran his company, or how he runs his company, and what he does, doesn't do, that's not her thing. That's not her fault. But the fact that she's giving money to historically black colleges, which a lot of folks don't even care about, the fact that she's doing that should be what's focused on. The other thing is, people are talking about money should be given to the homeless and blah, 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 blah. And what folks don't understand is it's much different and none of these people donate anything in their life anyway. They don't volunteer, they don't help, they don't do any of the stuff. This is where part of this generation, and when I say this generation, I'm talking people born from 1960 on down to today. there's a good chunk of the population that feels entitled in this country. Very entitled, very tribalistic, very intolerant. That's kind of what this society is about. Not saying generations prior to that weren't like that, but they weren't as entitled. They may have had some bigoted views, absolutely, and felt that other people shouldn't, and I'm not saying all, but they may have felt as culturally that other people, mainly black folks and other folks, shouldn't have rights and this and that and the other. There may be some that felt that way, obviously, but it seems like this chunk of people, there's a huge part that just feels so entitled. And that if you become successful, then you should pretty much give everything away to somebody else. Right? And that's not to say that Amazon shouldn't pay taxes and that type of, they should. But a lot of these people who are screaming that don't do anything other than complain on social media. That's all they do. They don't understand that working with the homeless is a very complex issue. It's not as simple as just throwing money at people and thinking that works. If that was the case, Haiti would be the biggest empire in the world. Throwing money at something doesn't fix it. You have to actually work things versus throwing money at it. Throwing money at poverty doesn't work. And I'm someone who's big on paying taxes, big on all those things, big on wanting to help the homeless, big on helping people. I mean, obviously, it's why I go to Haiti a lot. But throwing money does not work. You actually have to get down on the ground, put your hands in the dirt, and work. Because otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. Homelessness doesn't get solved by just building people houses and walking away or taxing the Amazon until a lot of these people, you get the impression too with Mackenzie, is that they feel like if she donated everything she ever had and was homeless herself, then that's cool. They'd be happy maybe. Or that if Amazon literally had no money because they gave it all away, they'd be happy. It's just silly, but yet they won't donate any of their money or time to do anything. You never see them posting about what they do or how they help, but they complain about injustice, which there is injustice, but it's different when you complain about injustice and you actually do stuff versus just complaining. Anybody can do that. They don't do the hard work, so they don't quite understand even what they're talking about. Noelle worked with the homeless and can tell you that throwing money at the homeless does absolutely nothing. You can't buy your way out of that. It is a whole process. You see what I'm saying? There's a process behind this. Some of the people who are homeless may not be homeless because of substance abuse, but it could be due to the fact that their job is not paying them enough money. Or they have several jobs, but they have a huge amount of debts. You see what I'm saying? And it's not necessarily we'll just pay their bills. Well, how is that fair to other people who didn't get themselves into a bind? Some people just were irresponsible. Some people, their jobs cut them and did them dirty. Some people have substance abuse issues. So throwing money at them is only going to embolden them to do more of the same thing. You have to have social workers to help with that issue. So in that case, put resources behind social workers, not just, towards housing. That just really doesn't fix it. It's a complex thing. But the fact that Mackenzie put money into many different charities, no one's looking at that. The fact that she, in this group, the fact that she actually did not have to. This woman's kids are set for life. She's set for life. Her grandkids, great-grandkids are set. The fact that she on her own did something that she did not have to do is being ignored. And part of that group does have a hint of bigotry. Deeply. Very deeply. They don't... And it's a group that's here in Seattle. They really have an issue with interracial couples, especially if it's a black man and a white woman, or a black man and anything. They have a big issue with that. And they have a lot of anger and hate towards white people. It's just the facts. Now, don't get me wrong. I, on Facebook, if anybody follows, will sit there and put anybody in their place. And especially when there's bigotry that I see, or there's videos or what have you, I'll post those things all day long. But one thing that Tupac said that was really cool is misplaced hate is a disgrace to race. And it is, because all of this anger and hate that some of these folks have, and tribalistic views, all of that energy can be put towards actually doing something that makes a difference. You see what I'm saying? But social media has really enabled, I don't think society is necessarily worse than it's ever been. I think actually, probably society is better now than it used to be. But it's just that we're able to see it more constantly. We're able to see the viewpoints of people much more so than before. It's now, social media now has forced people to be family whether or not they want to be, right? Because you can have a ton of people on Facebook that you don't even know, but now they're part of your Facebook family, so to speak, and you get to actually hear their inner thoughts. You see what I'm saying? Whereas before, you would have never known that that's how these individuals believe, or how certain people in certain regions think, or any of that. I can see now, just for being here in Washington long enough, I can read newspapers of places I used to live, and the comment section, and it's like, wow. Not that people here don't necessarily believe some of the same, in the same general views, but the way that people express themselves is completely different. I can read comments on some of the Facebook groups of people here in the Seattle area. I can read the comment and pretty much tell you that they're not from Seattle. Not saying that people in Seattle have, but you can just read the way the comment is constructed, and I can pretty much 9 times out of 10 tell you they're not from here. And you can read the comments if it's a Tacoma paper, and I can tell you, yep, they're from here. Just you can tell. Even those who may have a very extreme conservative view, I can tell you, yep, they're from here. Or, no, they're not from here. They may have a very extreme conservative view, but they're not from here. You can just tell. And that's not based on education or anything. It's just the way that things are constructed and how it's said. You can kind of tell. But I don't think, because someone had asked me this question, and this is where all this is kind of sparking from. Someone asked, do you think that society nowadays is worse than what it was? And I don't think that. I really don't think that. I think that social media makes it a little bit more visible, and technology has made it a lot more visible because we're able to record what people are saying. And I think that now society realizes that it's a pretty bad issue. We haven't really came as far as what people thought. A lot of people, I think a good segment of the population is out of sight, out of mind. That's a big chunk of society. And regardless of race, religion, political views, whatever, out of sight, out of mind. If it's not something that I see, then it doesn't exist, or it's not something I care about, or it doesn't affect me, I don't care. That's a big chunk of society. And I think that once they actually have seen proof, and it's not just a one-off in their mind, or it's not just well, that happened because. It's different now than it was back in the day of Rodney King. You see what I'm saying? And every year, even though things happened quite a bit back then, this isn't something new, but it seems like now folks are seeing how things are throughout the country. It's a systematic thing. It's a mindset. So I think that has started to change the way that folks are operating and doing. Here's what I have always said, because I saw people going back and forth in the comments, on this Facebook group and others. One of the things that Facebook has done and other social media platforms have done by bringing us as being a family, even though we necessarily don't want to be, or we wouldn't choose to be a family, we're kind of forced into it if you're friends with people and they have these weird extreme viewpoints, is, and I've had people tell me, well, just because someone has a different view doesn't mean that, I try to listen to their view. I may disagree with it, but I try to understand their viewpoint and see where they're coming from. And it's like, good for you. Good for you. But that doesn't mean that I have to, or that I want to tolerate stupidity. You know what I mean? Like, it one of the things that social media exposes is education, lack of education, those who believe in conspiracy theories, those who don't, those who blindly follow things, those who actually research, those who are entitled, those who are not. It exposes everything. Everything. And it shows who's mature and who isn't. There are people who really never did. They may have physically graduated high school, but mentally they're still back in the second grade. It exposes that. And there are people who are in their 60s who are still extremely immature. There are people who don't have any sort of couth. And I think the social media exposes that. I don't think it's something that's new necessarily, but do I think that social media changes how people choose as friends, or the fact that now people don't talk as much? Yeah, because they are too busy doing this. So I don't think it's like it was back in the day when you would have to pick up the phone and call someone, or you have to go to someone's house and, have a conversation. Now you can just fire back quickly and anonymously to people, somewhat anonymously. And so, yeah, I think it changed things that way quite a bit. But I think the mindset has always been this way. But I do think that we're actually better now, believe it or not, than we were back in the day. I know that's shocking to people, but that shows you how bad it actually was years and years and years ago versus today. Here's my thing. I don't think that people should blindly accept stupidity. If someone has a viewpoint that you don't agree with and it's extremely toxic in your mind, then do away with them or ignore them. A lot of these social media platforms allow you to block people, unfollow people. There's a lot of people on Facebook that I unfollow. I'm still friends with, but I unfollow because their viewpoints are just so stupid, in my view, in my opinion. And that's okay. There are people who think my views are stupid. That's totally cool. But there are some people who their viewpoints are just so, like, you know what I mean? Like, conspiracy theory all day. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And otherwise, though, they're harmless. So I'm like, whatever. I'll still be friends on Facebook, but would I meet them in person? No. Nah. There are a lot of people who now, and there's some people who, believe it or not, want to meet us. But there are some people now who I respect their views, but would I ever actually be friends with them or any of that type of thing in real life? No. Only because I know our views are so drastically different. And the reason, and what I've learned too, is that can lead to bigger issues. Just past history, and I kind of went through that on a video I did, is that some folks are saying you should have people, no one should think the same, and I agree. We won't. Noelle and I don't think the same, but we're still in the same chapter on the same book. We may be in different pages on different things, but we're still on the same chapter in the same book. It's not like someone who's on a completely different book. They're on a sci-fi novel. and they're on a completely different page, right? We're the same book. If someone's in the same book, which I can name several people on my Facebook, they're on the same book, but they're maybe in a different chapter, that's cool. That's completely cool. We don't have to be on the same page, same chapter, same book. But when you're way different, then yeah, I don't really see that happening. Just because I've seen so many issues. And you have some people who become super defensive, or if someone's very tribalistic, or that's all they talk about is politics all day. It used to be religion. It used to be that was what was talked about all the time. People kind of gloss past that, and now in the last 3 years, people are very, very political. Everything is political. A fart and the smell that it gives is political nowadays. Everything. People want to politicize everything. Even though it's not a political issue, people want to play politics. Even things like race, which wouldn't necessarily always be political, it depends on the circumstance. People want to say, well, that's a political topic. And it's like, but it isn't. It isn't. But because we're so conditioned, really, in the last 3 years, so much so, that everything now people think is a political issue when it isn't. And my biggest thing is you vote with your feet. Walk away from toxic people. Doesn't matter what race they are, doesn't matter what it is. Walk away from toxic people. Trust me. I've been that one back in the day. Was like, yeah, they think differently, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna walk away from them. I'm gonna try to like reason with them and let them know that hatred and bigotry is the wrong thing, and that you're wasting your time, because adults are who they are, and they're never going to change their viewpoint unless they choose to do so. It doesn't matter how much proof you have. It doesn't matter how much documentation. It doesn't matter how uneducated they are. They're never going to, typically, 9 times out of 9, okay? They're never going to get there. They're just not. Doesn't matter how much education or not they have. I know someone right now who's from another country who she constantly believes in conspiracy theories. A little bit xenophobic, but yet you're living here. They're xenophobic in terms of maybe not xenophobic, okay? But they have a very high view of their own country that they're from, but not such a positive view about this country. And I'm thinking, A, why are you here? B, your country's not always been on the right side of history either. These are facts. But they believe heavily in conspiracy theories. And you can't change, and they're educated and a professional, but you can't fix that mentality. That's just how people are raised, and not necessarily by their parents. That's just the way that that's just them, right? You can't always blame the parents. That's just how some people, through life experiences, whatever, maybe they've bumped their head a couple of times and just, woke up one day and common sense just doesn't hit them. Because there's certain things that are just common sense. They're just, nope. I mean, and I'm not saying it's an opinion type of thing. It's truly common sense. Like most people would say, well, but for them, nope. And so, again, don't argue with people on social media. It's a waste of time. Don't argue with people. And people have said, don't feed the trolls. And that used to be a common thing a few years ago. Don't feed the trolls. And a lot of people were like, I'm not going to respond to stupidity. But now they take the bait. I saw it on there. People taking the bait. There was a good chunk of people that didn't. And I'm talking about the group that was talking about McKinsey. And my thing is, don't take that bait. Because they're going to bait you into a huge argument. And it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it. By the way, thank you, McKinsey, for doing something that a lot of people don't do, and thank you for donating money that you don't have to donate, and for improve. And some people were saying, get this, some people were saying that they went to a particular HBCU and all of that. However, they had an issue with the ones that she was donating money to. Like, that's, I mean, that, it's just, it's funny. There's no win. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's why certain people that have, there's certain people, and I'm not going to mention their names, that's why certain big people in society, there's people have turned them into enemies for no reason, and they never respond to it. They never, there's so many conspiracy theories to some of the people that have actually helped society around the world, and those people never respond to these small individuals. It reminds me of something too, and I've always tried to keep that in mind and keep that in check, is that wolves howl at the moon, but the moon is so great it never responds back. And I would consider Mackenzie being one of those moons. Now, you can debate that all day long. That's my opinion. There's a lot of people that are pretty much the moon, and you have a whole lot of wolves that have to look up and howl, but the moon can care less. Anyhow, that's my opinion. Yeah, I think social media does expose a lot of things that we kind of were not maybe privy to, because our world at one point was just kind of very localized. But now that you have people that can be from many different parts of the country, many different parts of the world, you're actually seeing more of how the world works. To some, it's kind of scary. To others, like myself, I start to weed out the things that are kind of strange to me just for my own sanity. Because a lot of times, even though I don't, and I was trying to end this video, but even though I don't respond to some of the stupidity, it still makes you have to stop and read stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I have to stop and read something and I'm like, that's just so stupid. Especially when it comes to race. You know, there's debates that people have about things that they don't really have any business debating. You know what I mean? Like, as a man, here's an example. As a man, I would never sit here and debate a woman about women's rights. Saying, you know, if a woman's saying women should have the rights to do this, and this. As a man, if I sat there and debated her saying, well, that's silly that you think this way, or why would you feel this way, or how come you feel that way, and, you know, there's a different side to different arguments here, and I think that you're not really thinking things through. That's just stupid. In my opinion, I think that's stupid. To invalidate someone who's lived their whole life as a woman, and I ain't got no experience in this at all, but yet I'm going to sit here and debate you. I think that shows how stupid some people are. You have no experience on it. It's the same thing with the medical community. Like, the medical community can say, look, we've got, I mean, not just our lifetime experience in this, but, you know, past scientific research. And yet you have people who who barely got through high school debating people, saying, well, just because you a specialist, a so-called specialist, doesn't mean you know everything. But what do you know? You know what I'm saying? How can you literally take people like that seriously? And yet, throughout my day, which is kind of busy, I'm scrolling through things, because sometimes people post something that's funny, or sometimes people post something that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And, you know, I go and research it, and I'm like, oh, dang, I didn't know that. So it's important, but then you come across somebody that's got to post something that's like, you know that's been debunked. And so then it's like, okay, I was doing good, I was going through a good flow, and then there's somebody throws out a little poo bomb, and it's like, no. So anyhow, that's my rant for the day, for the week. I'm not going to do another, hopefully I won't do another rant, But yeah, to someone that actually asked, because I didn't really respond directly to them, but they had just sent a message like, social media, man. And yeah, I have to say I agree. It's puzzling, but it's actually a good thing that we have it because it gives you an idea of truly how people think. Don't waste your time and energy on trying to debate somebody and try to get them over to believe in the way that you do. You can always lead a horse to water, you can't force it to drink. That's a very true statement. But anyhow, make sure you join our Discord, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.